Trevino, where right now you can book your holiday parties here at the Alehouse. They can take anywhere from 20 all the way up to 200 people. In fact, come down here at 1506 Lee Trevino and inquire how you can have your holiday party, your next holiday party here at the Alehouse, including your own private room, the Green Room, which is a great way to host every single gathering. And also, just 5 days from now, this Saturday, you can join Border City Alehouse for their Ugly Sweater Christmas Party. That's right. They will kick off Christmas in the best way possible with ugly sweaters. Prizes for the best ugly sweaters. Also, they have DJ Avid coming up at 9 o'clock. They have $5 Ciroc flavors all night. It's happening out at the Alehouse, 1506 Lee Trevino, our home each and every Monday night. Want to welcome back to the show the aforementioned Adrian Broadus along with Alberto Urueta. The two of us, three of us, I should say, will take you all the way up till kickoff for tonight's Monday night football game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Cincinnati Bengals. We've got UTEP basketball tickets for Monday's game against Charlton State. That's the return of Billy Clyde Gillespie. A week from tonight, you want to go see the Miners in Charlton State? Come down and see us tonight. We also have skate pass vouchers to the Convention Center Plaza for the rink at Winterfest. This is good through the new year, January the 1st, out at the Convention Center Plaza. You want more information, just go to epwinterfest.com. We're going to be giving that away. Then, from our friends at All That Music and Video, located at the Fountains of Farah, just below the Best Buy parking lot, we've got a pair of Pop Funkos tonight. Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott. So, yes, both quarterbacks. We've got Pop Funkos. We'll be giving those out.
Nice.
We've got the Dallas Cowboys Complete History we're going to be giving out on DVD. We have a special Dallas Cowboys Christmas album that we are going to be giving out. This is the Dallas Cowboys Christmas 1985-86 is when this is from. And Coach Landry and the Cowboys are featured in this hard-to-find Christmas CD we're going to be giving away. We also have Bengals lanyard, a Bengals bottle opener keychain, all that to give away with Sports Talk Live here on a Monday. Gentlemen, how are we doing today? We have a lot to cover, a lot to talk about.
We're doing great, Steve. We are back here at the River Oaks Property Schoolyard Sports Studios, and man, there's so much to talk about. We now have the stage set for the 91st Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, and we have a full 12-team college football playoff schedule now, Steve. There's so much madness going on in sports, but I love it. We're fresh off a big NFL weekend as well, and a lot of other good sports happening here on the program locally and nationally that we're following, so great stuff so far.
Give me a review of your weekend to San Diego with the boys, how that worked out as far as the golf, the fun, and getting a chance to get away for a weekend.
Yeah, it was nice. It went fast. It felt like we were there for just a day, like 24 hours, and it was probably because we were. Our flight got delayed Friday, so we didn't arrive till a little later in the evening on Friday. But we had a great time just catching up. All day Saturday, we were playing sports. We were mixing in sports, like watching everything, watching the Big 12 Championship. Had an Arizona State graduate who was really excited. We were also following along with the UFC card late in the night as well. Followed the UTEP basketball game, which was excellent. Watched them dominating that win. And then came back early yesterday. So an easy, quick trip out to San Diego. Really enjoyed just spending time with my friends.
No golf this weekend.
We did.
Or did you play golf?
We mixed in some golf. We mixed in some basketball, too. So it felt like
nice.
a sports-heavy weekend. We were watching it and playing it, so it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Alberto, what about you? How was the weekend?
Steve, it was a great weekend. A lot of UTEP action over the weekend. So first off, it was a little Seattle U and UTEP, and then followed that up with some UTEP Portland women's basketball action after finding out who was going to come to the Sun Bowl on December 31st, and then sprinkled in on Sunday also a great slate of football games. So it was a pretty busy weekend.
Sounds like it. Now, why don't we start with the 2024 Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, which will feature, in case people have not been following this story, on Sunday when it was announced. But this is going to feature Louisville and Washington and high noon on Tuesday, December 31st. Now, Louisville had a really nice season, 8-4 this year. Their only losses came at Notre Dame, which was by 7. Home against SMU, 7 points. Miami beat them by 7. And Stanford ended up winning by 3. Other than that, the Cardinals won every game. So think about it. They lost 3 games by 7, 1 by 3 points. They're 8-4. Jeff Brom is coming. I'm excited about that. They haven't been there since 1958. So a lot of good things happening with Louisville coming back. And then they take on the Huskies, who, as we know, this season lost to Washington State by 5, lost at Rutgers by 3. Iowa blew them out pretty good on the road. Indiana beat them by a pair of touchdowns on the road. And then they lost to Penn State and Oregon. So you think about it, almost all their losses came to big-time programs that had great seasons. They did beat Michigan by 10 when they were ranked 10th in the country. That was a big win for them. They played in the national championship a year ago. And, guys, I know it hasn't been the kind of year that some fans were hoping, but if you look really at the Pac-12, this was not the season where that many teams had terrific records. Arizona State did, and so did Oregon. But other than that, if it wasn't going to be Washington, it was going to be USC. They were 6-6, or Cal, 6-6. So this game was headed for a 6-6 no matter what. And I do like the fact that the Huskies are coming back for the first time in a while.
Okay, a lot of things to note, Steve. First off, Louisville. This is a squad right here who killed it to close out the season, averaging 37 points per game in the final 4 games of the stretch. So offensively, you're going to get a team who can really throw the ball, and then they balance it out by a freshman running back in Isaac Brown. And you're going to want to remember that name, Isaac Brown. This is a guy who maybe 3 years, 2 years from now, we could be talking about playing in the NFL. On the flip side, you're talking about Washington, who has a lot of different NFL coaching ties. How about defensive coordinator? Let's start it off right there. Steven Belichick. His dad is in the news all day, or has been in the news all weekend long for being rumored and tied to that North Carolina job. I wonder if Steven Belichick even coaches in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl when it's all said and done, or if he's pried away and moving over to North Carolina. Don't forget about some of their freshmen that they have. Duke Watson is kind of the name to look at. 9 yards per carry. He's a freshman running back. This guy makes me really excited to watch him. But you know what? I feel like the program-setting coach, like Jed Fish, who last year had a lot of really good traction with Arizona last year. He's a coach who could be ascending in that Big Ten, Steve. So maybe next year, Louisville, Washington. We're talking about totally different spots for both of these squads. Maybe these two teams are like a year or two away, just like Notre Dame was. Look at them. They're now in the college football playoff, and they were last year in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
You know what else I really like about this game, guys? I like the fact, I think they're both going to score a lot of points. I like that. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of players from these two teams either in the portal or going to the NFL early. I feel like the nucleus is strong, and for the most part, the leaders on this team, especially offensively, are going to be playing in this game.
I think so, too. And a lot of these guys are young, too, man. So it behooves them to play, right? When you're younger and you're still trying to cut your teeth in this sport, you're not worrying about the NFL. You're not worrying about the transfer portal as of right now. These two coaches aren't on their way out. So I feel like with all that being said, there's more incentive to play in this bowl game right here for both these squads. They want to finish out this season on a positive note, and I think both teams can do so with a win in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
I do too. And by the way, I mean, once again, I'm happy with this matchup. Would I have liked to have seen a 6-6 USC come back? Sure. But I really don't think that a 6-6 Washington is that much of a difference this time around, especially with the young nucleus in the core that they have. So, not to mention the fact that Miller Moss isn't even around right now. He's gone. So in the portal. So, yeah, I mean, this could be fun for us. A lot of fun for the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. We'll be giving away tickets as we get closer to this game. And just so many good things happening with these two clubs. So that kind of starts us off for college football. But, guys, the fact that SMU made it into the playoffs and Alabama did not had sent a lot of shockwaves around the college football world here since yesterday when it was announced.
I'm okay with it knowing that it's Alabama out. That's where we'll start off with there. I get it. I'm an SEC guy myself. I loved this season for the SEC, but if you watch these games with Alabama, particularly that 24-3 drubbing again, that they lost against Oklahoma, you would realize this team does not have what it takes to be one of the 12 teams in the college football playoff. I would argue South Carolina had a better resume than Alabama, but last week that went out the window. South Carolina's chances to get in the playoff went out the window last week when they were picked as one of the 12 teams in the rankings. So this was kind of set up last week. Clemson beating SMU in the ACC title game solidified things, and you heard the committee yesterday when they talked about it. They felt like SMU competed hard in that game against Clemson, and so they deserve that playoff spot according to them. But we'll have some guests coming from the college football playoff, Steve, here in the next couple of weeks to try to sort all of this out. It just makes for real exciting football coming up here in the next month.
It sure does. Do you believe that if Nick Saban was still coaching a 3-loss Alabama team, they would have been left out?
No, I don't. I simply. What about you? How do you feel about that?
No, absolutely not. So the fact that Saban's not there makes it a little easier, doesn't it, to say no to Alabama?
The brand isn't what it was, right? I mean, it's a new coach right there, and they had a good season. It's just their losses were tough to overlook, and you have 3 losses right there. I feel like that would have been hard to justify, especially, when you're talking about SMU had a near-perfect season across the ACC.
You're right. 505-6009, that is our telephone number. 505-6009. We also have the Juan Soto sweepstakes to talk about on the show today with the New York Mets and Steve Cohen breaking the bank for the prized free agent acquisition. We can get to that. We can get to plenty of your phone calls. Oh, so much to cover on the show. So much to cover. The UTEP men's basketball team getting ready for Louisville. They're taking their trip tomorrow. The UTEP men looked very, very good on Saturday. Something we're going to talk about here on the program as well. The women going through a tougher stretch now. Lost to Portland, who was 9-0 going into that one. Now they also are getting ready for Utah Tech. And before you know it, an opportunity to, keep trying to battle test themselves away from home. Also, something we're going to be talking about on the show over the next 2 hours or so. But a lot to get to. We'll keep things moving out here at the Alehouse. Come down, folks. Get yourself ready. The suddenly hot Dallas Cowboys at 5-7 getting set to do battle with the Cincinnati Bengals. Can the Cowboys continue their winning ways? We'll find out. But first, let's go to Charlie 1 and get ourselves this traffic update. We'd love to hear you as we come back from Border City Alehouse, and going to be here with you through halftime of the Cowboys and the Bengals. So come on down and join us. In fact, so many great prizes. The UTEP tickets, the Winterfest, Skate Pass vouchers, all those goodies from All That Music and Video, which, by the way, holidays are 2 weeks away. If you still haven't picked out the perfect gift, they've got everything you could possibly imagine, whether it's vinyl, CDs, DVDs, posters, Funkos, action figures, pop culture, the boutique. They got a little bit for everybody, folks. All That Music and Video, located just below the Best Buy parking lot. Check them out because that is a great place to shop for the holidays. All right. I mentioned briefly the situation involving Juan Soto. If you're a Yankee fan, I don't even know if you're upset. I mean, Hal Steinbrenner went to $760 million in 16 years. Steve Cohen just gave him a better offer. Not just $5 more, but 15 instead of 16. Now, some will say, does it really matter at that point? Like, if the Yankees kept going, when is enough enough? So as a Yankee, I've heard some Yankee fans upset that they didn't retain Juan Soto. Look, I don't even know if Juan Soto wanted to stay with the Yankees. I have no idea. Because think about this. Let's say he plays the next 15, 16 years of his life with the Yanks. He's never going to be the best player in franchise history. That is reserved for Babe Ruth or Joe DiMaggio or Mickey Mantle or anybody else that's donned pinstripes like Lou Gehrig. I mean, you think about it. The list of Yankee greats, endless. He now has a very realistic chance to go down as the greatest player in the history of the New York Mets. A franchise that's been around since 1962, and you could say their best ever player is Tom Seaver, a pitcher. So now all of a sudden, if Juan Soto is going to spend the next decade and a half in New York playing Mets, he could easily become the best player in the history of the franchise. That probably means something to him. I think playing for Mendy also means something for him. Carlos Mendoza, playing alongside Francisco Lindor. And there's a lot of positives. And knowing you've got a billionaire ready to break the bank to bring you there. So as a Met fan, am I excited? You better believe it, considering who they went up against and how much other teams bid. We heard the Red Sox got to $700 million. We told you about the Yankees. The Dodgers were at $600 million. I don't know how much the Blue Jays were going to give Juan Soto, but it doesn't even matter. He's now a Met. It's going to be interesting to see who else the Mets sign with Soto on board. But, Adrian, big night for Met fans last night for sure.
You had a real interesting take compared to some other people I heard talk about this, Steve. The first thing, I was listening to some Yankee fans talk about it first, and the Yankee fans tried to downplay it and say, oh, this is just another Albert Pujols type of signing. I was like, wait a second. Are you serious right here? Juan Soto hasn't, you could make the argument he hasn't really even scratched the surface of what kind of player he could be. But to flip it back to what you said of, maybe his trajectory in Mets history and where he could rank all time. What would the thresholds have to be for that? Is it like MVPs coupled up with rings for the Mets here in the next 15 years?
Ring. Period. Ring. Forget rings. Plural. The Mets, the last time the Mets won a World Series, I was 13 years old. All right? It's been a while. Almost 40 years. So, you know what? I'm not greedy. I don't believe that if Juan Soto only wins one championship, it's worth. Of course, it's worth it. They haven't won it. They've been to the series a handful of times since, but they haven't won since '86. So I'm not asking for multiple World Series. Give me one, and give me a team that goes to the playoffs every year, and I'll be happy. That's what I want. Oh, and by the way, about Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols was 32 years old when he signed with the Angels. 32. Juan Soto is turning 26. Big difference when you talk about the next 6 years and realize that the Mets are getting him in his prime years. That's when they're getting him. He came up as a teenager. So I can't compare Pujols to Soto because of the age gap. It's a much, much different situation. All right. We got a lot to cover. 26 past the hour. But the truth about the Mets and Yankees really is the fact that right now, if Juan Soto goes to the Dodgers, you already have Freeman and Betts and Ohtani. Like, he'll just be another star on a team loaded with stars. With the Yankees, it's Aaron Judge's team. It's his team. So he goes to the Mets, and yes, they've got Francisco Lindor, but Juan Soto can be the man, the alpha on that team in need of a superstar, and they get it. So did they overpay? Of course. I mean, the money he's making is ridiculous. I think Pat McAfee said that if he makes like $5,000 an hour for the next 15 years, Adrian, he's going to get to $765 million.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. Somebody who's been in the league since he was 19 and has really killed it since he's been that age, and now 26, doesn't feel like he's been in the league that long, Steve. It feels like, when he was with Washington and just lighted it up with them, that doesn't feel like that long ago, and all the contributions he's done so far. I just can't believe there are Yankee fans waking up today, Monday, December 9th, who are okay with this. I know that you have Stanton and Judge on your roster. Those two are probably the faces of your team. Even, Stanton in the playoff run, and of course Judge for what he's done over the past 2 seasons, MVP caliber talent. But how do you let Soto just walk? Like, you had him in the bag, and you let a team, down the street outbid you. I just can't believe it if you're a Yankees fan today, knowing that you're not going to have Juan Soto for the future.
The Mets have never done this before. This is the first time the Mets have ever outspent and essentially landed a superstar when the Yankees were pursuing. So this is unprecedented stuff, okay? And some have already said that if George was still alive, this never would have happened. George Steinbrenner never would have allowed a guy like Juan Soto to ever go to the crosstown rival Mets, ever. So it's kind of interesting. But you know what? Steve Cohen's got $21 billion and decided he wanted to spend $765 million of it on Juan Soto, who does have an opt-out after 5 years, which is also an interesting storyline, and is getting a $75 million signing bonus. So there is the chance that, let's just say, things don't work out over those 5 years, that Soto could opt out, or the Mets could increase his annual payout from $51 million to $55 million and void the opt-out. So that's another fascinating little storyline in this contract. Let's go to the phones. 28 past. Richard, West Side, is where we started off today. Richard, welcome aboard. How are you?
Good, and yourself. First off, happy holidays to everybody. And I'm going to be that guy, Steve. I need to correct you because you said 3 teams that were in the Pac-12. You mentioned USC, Oregon, and Arizona State. They're in 3 different leagues now. We're 2 different leagues now.
No. What I'm talking about is, okay, what I mean is this. Pac-12 spread out to all these different leagues. However, based on the Sun Bowl and all the old bowl affiliations, they all still have relationships with Pac-12 teams in these new conferences. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that even though Oregon's in the Big Ten, there's still that the chain reaction with Arizona State going and getting being in the top 12 as opposed to falling down had a ripple effect that ultimately led USC to the Vegas Bowl rather than the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl here in El Paso, which is why we have Washington. So you're right. They're spread out everywhere. They're in the ACC. They're in the Big 12. They're in the Big 10. There's still 2 Pac-12 teams left. But I'm just talking about it as it relates to the game here in El Paso. Okay.
That's the first one. Second one is, could we have done a little bit better for the Sun Bowl? I mean, for example, could Bernie and the rest of the Sun Bowl committee said, hey, Alamo Bowl was swept out. Instead of you having 2 Big 12 teams, you can have one of ours. Preferably bring in Colorado, but even BYU would, I think, BYU Washington, BYU Louisville for Colorado probably would have been a bigger draw. Just in as a local who grew up watching the Sun Bowl, I mean, you bring Shador and Travis to the Sun Bowl, you're going to have 80,000 people because 20,000 is going to be in the mountain. Lastly, or before I leave, our quarterback. His new name is Quinn Prescott because when it came for him to show up in big games, he's not there. So Quinn Prescott and Dak Ewers, I just need to get rid of them.
Let me ask you this, okay? I watched that Texas loss to Georgia right now. And Quinn Ewers shouldn't even be playing for Texas in the playoffs. They should give it to Arch Manning. Ewers did not have a good game and ruined a terrific Texas defensive effort against Georgia.
No, I agree, and especially in that one pass we threw on the outside shoulder, and one of them that was almost intercepted. Didn't he just, float them almost no power like dead ducks?
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. So he did not play well. Did not play well at all. So, but understand this, by the way, just to understand this. The reason Colorado went to the Alamo Bowl, they are a former Pac-12 team who had a better record than based on the picks. Alamo and Holiday pick higher than the Sun and higher than the Vegas Bowl. So that's why Colorado is there. Pac-12 affiliate, original, and that's how all these bowl games work. Every bowl game above the Sun Bowl that used to pick Pac-12 teams that were higher up in the standings still do that. So there's no way the Alamo Bowl is going to switch with the Sun Bowl. Why would they give up Colorado if they have them as a result of their old agreement with the Pac-12 that's still being honored now with all the new conferences?
No, and you know what? That's why you're the sports guy. That's why I'm, public servant. You know this. I didn't know that. I was just thinking that maybe we could swap out, a team in the first round draft pick to be named later in a couple of years.
Dude, that'd be great. Maybe Bernie could have given some Chick-fil-A sandwiches to the Alamo Bowl as a result of this, right? And we could have swapped it or given them a year, like a lifetime supply of Frosted Flakes. But the truth is, look, there's these bowl payouts are crazy. And I've looked into this before because here's the biggest problem, Richard. If the Sun Bowl increases their payouts, then the Alamo is going to increase theirs, and the Vegas is going to increase theirs, and the Holiday will increase theirs. They'll make sure that right now it's so difficult to leapfrog a lot of these bowl games. So, the only thing that happens when you increase payouts, if everybody increases the payouts, is that the conferences get richer. But you don't necessarily, that doesn't mean that you might be getting a better team because the bowls above you might do the exact same thing once they find out that you're increasing your payout.
Okay, and I know you're against Ray, but I just want to ask you this. Do you think the conference championship games are going to be done away with the next 2 to 3 years? And I'll leave you with that. Thank you for taking my call.
Great question, Richard. I mean, let me say this. Conference championship games have a chance to make money. Do I ever see a situation where these leagues are going to try to, put themselves in a position where they don't get a chance to make extra money? Probably not. Adrian, what about you? What do you think?
Steve, I'm sorry I was on the phone, so anything you just asked me is totally irrelevant.
The question from Richard is, could we ever see a situation where the conferences end their championship games?
Yes. My thought is yes, we could. I mean, either you're going to see the conference championship games being irrelevant or non-conference becoming irrelevant. Maybe it's the latter when it's all said and done. Maybe next year or in years to come, some of these schools soften up their non-conference slate, knowing how difficult their conference slate really is.
But, I mean, as far as the championship games go, there's so much money to be made by these conferences having these games played. I don't know if they ever would want to give that up.
Yeah, I mean, look at how many people were at that game at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. You had Iowa State and Arizona State. Geographically, that game makes zero sense, but there were fans who showed up. Georgia, Texas at Mercedes-Benz, not to mention all the TV revenue that comes from it from the conference. It makes sense to continue these.
Let's do it. We'll come back after SportsCenter with more phone calls like Ray and Orly, but first, here's Adrian with the latest. Tearing your ACL that was just corrected a year ago, that's an awful, awful situation for Brooks in Carolina. Man, that's tough. Will he ever even come back again and be the same? Nobody knows. Man, not what you want to hear. Let's go to Ray. He joins us next as we continue here on Sports Talk. Ray, how are you?
How you guys doing? Happy early holidays to both of you.
Happy early holidays, Ray.
Plenty to talk about. I haven't been able to talk to you guys in a while, and I'm so glad you were talking baseball. I had a friend of mine text me during the football game last night saying, come on, guys, really? We got football, we got NBA. We're really talking about baseball? Well, how can you not when, the winter meetings and all these signings are going on? As a Dodgers fan, I'm so glad that they signed Blake Trinan to 2 years for $22 million. We got him back. I am still biting at the bit, waiting for them to get this deal done with Teoscar Hernandez. And I am so glad. I know you talked about, Steve, as Yankee fans, how could they, or as Adrian said, how could Yankee fans be happy with this? But for a Dodgers fan, a lifelong Dodgers fan, I am so glad we did not sign Juan Soto. I did not want that guy at all in Dodger blue. Watching him through his career, seeing his attitude in the dugout, and granted, he's a great player. In my opinion, he is nowhere near Ohtani as far as an athlete. He can hit the ball great, got a good arm, but he's not going to be pitching. And to see the kind of money he's getting, that was not one guy that I wanted to see in Dodger blue. There's not very many guys I would say that. Another one I heard a blurb about was Carlos Correa. Definitely do not want to ever see that guy in Dodger blue. You know why, from 2017. And to see Juan Soto, I just don't think, and you mentioned it, Steve, right before the last break, was that you said about the 5-year opt-out. And to me, that is critical because I think if things don't go his way, and you got to kind of look at it with a guy like that who's traveled now as much as he has. If things don't go his way and he's not winning, then he's not going to be staying. It's like, bringing that relative over to your house and saying, here, I'm going to give you the best room. Here, you can use my car. You can do this. And he says, yeah, but I don't know if I'm going to stick around very long. I got to see how things are going to go. Well, you know what? Then go. But for them, giving them all this money in this 5 years, I'd be a little bit, kind of walking on eggshells a bit because 5 years he may say, all right, we've won once maybe, or maybe we haven't won yet. You know what? I'm going somewhere else. So, I'm glad that guy.
Fascinated by it because here's the thing, too. The Mets control that void. Like, if they bump up his salary from $51 to $55 million after 5 years, it voids his opt-out. So he can't get out of the deal even if he wants to, if the Mets decide that they want to bump up his annual value by $4 million. So we'll see what happens. Maybe in 5 years the Mets are tired of him, he's tired of the Mets, and they just have a mutual parting of the ways. Or, you know what? Even if he's not thrilled, but the Mets are happy with what they're getting, they can lock him down for the rest of his career. So it will be interesting to see what happens over the next few years for sure.
I see what you're saying. Agree with you totally. I mean, it may be that point where the Mets might think he's getting ready to jump ship. Oh no, let's give him that money now because that way we can lock him in for good. Jumping over to football, Adrian and I were talking on the phone. The Rams yesterday just blew me away. I mean, I was, seeing them, nobody gave them, I think maybe except you and I, Adrian, nobody gave them a chance to win that game yesterday. And the way Matthew Stafford came out and played, and to see Puka Nacua come out and light it up like that, and Cooper Kupp finally come alive like we had been waiting for, that's the kind of game that really makes me think, right when I'm thinking, you know what, the season might be just about over, and they play like that against a team like that. However, second half, I just, Rams could not stop them one time going down the field. I thought when they had that 3-and-out, that might have been it because they couldn't stop them at all. You blink your eye, and in 4 plays, Buffalo's right back down inside the 10-yard line.
True. It was a great game. It was fun to watch. By the way, I give Josh Allen a lot of credit. He was terrific and still took the blame afterwards and said he didn't do enough. Yeah. But you want to know something else, Ray? It was a trap game for Buffalo. We talked about it on Friday's show, and we said that they got to go all the way across the country. Nobody's expecting them to lose that game, and the way the Rams are playing, they absolutely had some advantage if Buffalo came into that, maybe underestimating them a little bit. And we called it a trap game. We thought that this could be the Rams winning it on Sunday night because of those same reasons.
Exactly, because the Rams right now are in must-win. They're in playoff mode already. They have to keep winning. They can't not. And Buffalo, knowing that the last 2 times against McVay they've gone in there, they've just blown the roof off the joint and taken the Rams to town. And so, like you said, exactly a trap game. The Rams had to go out and play the way they did. Defense did enough there in the end to hold them off. Great play call by McVay on that last touchdown with that wide receiver screen to Nacua. And now the Rams have to go. I know you said Orly's your next call, and you can talk to him about his 49ers because now the Rams got to go to San Francisco on Thursday night. And both the 49ers and the Rams, I mean, I hate to say this because we've never really had to, but are we really in the worst division? Is it the most competitive division? Is it the most mediocre, division? But it's the most competitive division, I give you that, because it's only a 1-game separation with Seattle. And anybody, after give them a couple of weeks, then they're just playing the division out. And so this thing's going to really come down to the end.
Appreciate you, Ray. Thanks for the call. I was going to take the break, but you've already teased Orly, so let me get Orly in right now after that big 49ers crushing win over the Bears behind Guarendo's 2 touchdown runs. What's going on, Orly?
Well, it was a win, but it was expected against a bad Bear team. Let's face it, the Bears are not good. It was a good win. I mean, they need to get some things straightened out. I'm hoping the Rams shot their game on Sunday. They looked good. I hope that was their big game and they come in flat. But that's this game. The game this week against the Rams. The 49ers lose, it's over. They have to beat the Rams to stay in contention because Seattle. Green Bay. So you're hoping for a Green Bay 49er win, and that puts everybody back at 1 game. So anything could happen in the next 4 weeks. Unfortunately, the 49ers got a brutal schedule having to play Detroit down the road. So that's going to – all you do is play the game and see what happens.
There you go.
That's all you can do. At least we're still in the hunt, which is nice.
Yep.
Anyways,
appreciate you.
Sun Bowl.
Yep. Keep going.
No, as far as the Sun Bowl, that's a great pickup with Louisville. My hat's off to Birdie and the group. because that's a team that hasn't been here in 66 years. They're going to bring you a lot of fans. We're playing Louisville this week at UTEP against Louisville. How great is that? You know,
I know.
It's good. And they're playing in the Yum Center?
Yes,
Isn't that named? Yum is the corporate name for, I think, there's 3 or 4 restaurants. I think one of them is Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's the sponsor. That's a big sponsor. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to see what UTEP. This is going to see how far UTEP's come along. We're going to find out if they're ready to play with the big boys.
Yep. And by the way, good news. Louisville only has 7 healthy players right now on their roster. So if there was ever time to play the Cardinals and try to beat them, it's right now. So appreciate you, Orly. All right, I've got Enrique right after the break. Hang with me, pal. We'll get you on next. 45 past the hour. Sports Talk Live right here, 600 ESPN El Paso.
Once again, they never fail us. We have another great matchup for the Sun Bowl, and needless to say, I'm excited. I got my outdoor club tickets ready to go, and I was listening to the last caller about the future of these bowl games, and I like to think at least the Sun Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, Holiday Bowl, Vegas Bowl, Gator Bowl, I think those are what you would consider upper echelon bowl games still. And I think in order for these bowls to stay relevant, I think you guys touched on it a couple of weeks ago too with Mr. Elias, that eventually these bowl games might turn into a seeding for the playoffs. And I think that's
absolutely
where the future's going to go.
And by the way, don't be surprised if the Sun Bowl gets in on that conversation.
I wouldn't doubt it. You know, Mr. Levis and his staff do a great job, and they do a great way of marketing our city, marketing this game. You know, it's right behind the Orange Bowl as the longest tenured bowl in college football history. So what a better way to market that as a seeding for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's true. I think the Rose is the oldest, and then if I'm not mistaken, the Sun and the Orange started the very same season. So I think they're both tied for like second overall. Point is, it's incredible to think about those 3 games and just how long they've been going on, since the 30s, which is remarkable.
I'm heading to, I lost count, it's like 31, 32 games already for the Sun Bowl. So
Sun Bowl's got, let me think. I think the Sun Bowl's first year was 33, so, we're like 91. It's unbelievable when you really start to consider that. So 91 years. Yeah. Unreal.
And we keep getting good matchup after matchup. Like,
we do.
I'm just curious how we're going to go next year. Since I think, this year was the last legacy year?
No, next year I think is the last legacy year. I think they've got this and next year, or maybe even 2 more years. Adrian, when does this end? Do you know when the deal ends?
I'm not too sure off the top of my head, Steve. I seem to recall it's like 2 years, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, we'll check that out for you, Enrique, and give you some of those answers in the second hour of the show. But I appreciate the call. Thanks for waiting, and thanks for chiming in. All right, more in a moment. We're live, Border City Alehouse, hanging with you till 6:15. Kickoff for the Cowboys and the Bengals right here at 600 ESPN El Paso. Back live along with Adrian and Alberto Duetta. We're with you today out here at Border City Alehouse. It's our Monday night home. The Alehouse, a perfect place, not just for tonight and every Monday and sports weekends to watch all the games like the Cowboys and Bengals coming up in an hour and 10 minutes, but it's a great place for you to plan your holiday party, whether it's for your business or just your friends or even a large gathering. You can have it as little as 20 people, as large as 200. They've got all the room for you. Just head on down and ask the great folks here at Border City Alehouse how they can help you with your holiday party. We're getting you ready for the Cowboys and the Bengals. We've got great prizes, including a Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott Pop Funko from All That Music and Video, along with the Dallas Cowboys Complete History, the Cowboys 85-86 Christmas album on CD, and Bengals lanyard and Bengals keychain bottle opener. We're going to be giving those away. And our thanks again to all the folks out at All That Music and Video, a great place to get your holiday shopping started. They've got everything. All the music, video, posters, Pop Funkos, all the other items you could want. Check out the store. It is expanded right there at the Fountains of Farah, just below the Best Buy parking lot. All that music and video. We've got not one, not two, but 3 pairs of tickets for the UTEP basketball game against Tarleton State a week from tonight out at the Don Haskins Center. That is Billy Gillespie's return to the Haskins Center. And we're going to give you some skate pass vouchers to the rink at Winterfest through January the 1st. So if you want to win, come down and join us. Sign up. It's free to register, and we'll pick all the names out here at halftime. All right, 505-6009, our telephone number. We had some interesting calls in the first hour of the show. Lines are available. We've got 2 open as we send it on out to Eddie Morelos, our pal, the Mayor LC, who's joining us right now on the phone lines. Eddie, what's going on, man? How are you?
Dude, I'm excited. We got another matchup ready to go. Louisville is going to be coming to town, taking on the Huskies of Washington. And one cool thing I found out today as I was looking up information is you guys brought up the name Bill Belichick. One of his sons is an assistant coach on the Huskies, and Pete Carroll, one of Pete Carroll's sons, is also an assistant on the Huskies. I think that's pretty cool, Steve.
Yeah, maybe we'll get Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll making appearances to watch their kids coach.
You never know. We've had a lot of random celebrities show up to the bowl game year after year. Right. I heard when UCLA was here, and I can't confirm this, I just heard through the grapevine that Roberts was here. Dave Roberts showed up to the game when UCLA was here a couple of years back.
That's
Did
correct.
You know that?
Oh, that is correct. That's not I'll confirm it for you. Dave Roberts was here when that game was played. That's correct.
See, and I bet you I walked right by him multiple times because I roam the stadium to check on things, and I'm wondering if I walked right by him, I didn't even realize it, Steve.
You probably did. You probably did. So.
Another interesting note, Steve. By the way, I really appreciate you giving out the information about how the bowl game works and how the selection works. Did a really great job of that. And I already mentioned it.
Let me say this. Let me say this also. I don't want to cut you off, but I felt bad for Richard because I don't want to come across as I was upset with Richard. But I feel like some people feel like you could just grab anybody, and it doesn't work like that because even though the Pac-12 is no longer together outside of 2 teams, the bowls that had relationships with the Pac-12s still have those same relationships with those same teams in the new conferences, and the pecking order is still the same. So I think that's important to note because sometimes you look at a team's record and you think, well, why can't we do better? Well, if this was the Pac-12 and they were all ranked in their conference the same, we'd still have the exact same teams with the same records like we did this year. The only thing that changes is just the fact that they're with different conferences, but we still have that affiliation.
You're 100% correct, and that'll go through next year. So it'll be the same kind of deal next year. Then after that, Bernie and the rest of the admin will start wheeling and dealing, having talks with the various conferences to see who we're going to get a new contract with. So be on the lookout for all that in the future, And one other thing of note, on the other side for Louisville, we had a press conference with the head coach this morning, and he has 2 sons who are on his staff. So that's also an interesting thing there. He's got, I believe his offensive coordinator is one of his sons, and the director of ops is another one of his children. So that'll be a neat thing to follow along as well.
Yep, I like that. It's a good way to look at it. A lot of good storylines. I'm interested in that. Hey, by the way, I got a question for you because I don't know the answer to this, but you know how bowl payouts is public information and everybody kind of knows how much each team pays out because it's listed?
Yes.
Is that information available for sponsor dollars and how much each bowl sponsor gives the bowl games?
I believe it would be available. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I do believe that, especially if you ask each bowl game, they would probably be willing to say so.
You think they would? I don't know.
I think so.
That's one of those weird kind of, I don't want to say it's sticky, but I feel like sometimes these bowls all try to keep some stuff confidential, and maybe they feel like the sponsor dollars is like that. Although, let's be honest, like if you know how much each bowl is getting from their sponsors, it really makes the bowl payout game so much more interesting, because you start to say to yourself, well, if a sponsor gave us twice as much as we had, could we leapfrog certain bowls? And that would get kind of interesting when you think about the grand scheme of things.
And I would think of it like this, Steve, right? We're in the business of sports, and, in this business, we're all a bunch of competitors. So, yep. I think you said it earlier. Let's say we get a bigger, better sponsor who gives us more and more money, while the next one above us, Holiday and Alamo, will probably do the same. You already said it. We like to compete as well, and that's what this world is now.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Well, maybe we can get the Juan Soto Bowl now that he's signed for $765 million with the Mets.
There you go, Steve. Hey, thank you guys for all you do, man. We'll all be talking a lot more soon, okay?
Appreciate the call, Eddie. Thank you for getting in today. 505-6009. That is our telephone number as we continue. I've never seen documented numbers on how much money each of these sponsors gives their bowls. But you got to understand that the lower-end bowls that are on ESPN that pay the least probably get the least amount of sponsorship compared to some of the larger bowls out there. That just is what makes the most sense. And, that's completely understandable. And when you think about, some of the biggest bowl games there is, well, understand this. I'm sure the Sugar Bowl gets a ton of money from Allstate. I'm sure Prudential gives the Rose Bowl a ton of money. And by the way, Adrian, Alberto, the first ever bowl game to receive sponsor money was the Sun Bowl. Do you remember the first ever sponsor of the Sun Bowl?
I'm going to guess either two. All right, I'm going to go two guesses, okay? Give me two. I'm going to guess John Hancock, and I'm going to also guess Brute Sun Bowl.
Okay, John Hancock and Brute. What about you, Alberto?
I'm going to go with John Hancock, too.
Well, John Hancock is right. So John Hancock was the first ever company to sponsor a bowl game, and they sponsored the Sun Bowl. And by the way, good guess, because think about it. John Hancock, Prudential, Allstate. We're getting a little bit of a pattern here. So, but that's interesting, isn't it? That the Fiesta Bowl is using VRBO, Peach and Chick-fil-A, and then you look at some of these other games that not the first round playoff games, because those are all being played inside their home stadiums, but the bowl games themselves. I'd love to know how much these sponsors are getting. How much is Capital One giving the Orange Bowl? How much does Goodyear give the Cotton Bowl? And God only knows how much AT&T is paying for the national championship game this year. So
how much did Snoop Dogg pay for the Arizona Bowl, right?
Yes, there you go. It's another good one. You're right about that. How much? So it's so interesting to me. And, I don't have answers to some of these bowl games and how much money they're making. Some of them don't even have sponsors. In fact,
noticed that.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and, like the Hawaii Bowl doesn't apparently have a sponsor. It's just the Hawaii Bowl. So that's the hard part, too. You got to have a sponsor, and really, you want a sponsor that's going to, not be afraid to pay. And I already know that the Pop-Tarts Bowl is giving a bunch of money out. I mean, they topped Frosted Flakes and Tony the Tiger because it's still the Kellogg's family, but they probably saw the success that the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl got, and hey, why not take their Pop-Tarts brand and spend a little more money and go to Orlando and Camping World Stadium and sponsor that game? So that is interesting. But, yeah, I would love to know how much the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl is getting from Snoop Dogg. That would be fascinating to me.
There's a lot of random ones. Wasabi Fenway Bowl. Like, who's sponsoring that one right there? We all know about the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. We know about that one right there. But I was not familiar with the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. That must be a new sponsor right there. Other ones, Kinder's Texas Bowl. When did that happen? When did Kinder's join the Texas Bowl when it was all said and done in Houston? So interesting ones that are across the board. I felt like the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl has been trend-setting, though. Like the Pop-Tart, the fact that they eat the Pop-Tart after the game, the winning team, or even, the Duke's Mayo Bowl. They're pouring mayo on the winning coach. Like, all of this was started based off Kellogg's being showered to the winning coach. I think it was Herm Edwards in 2019 in the Arizona State win for the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
So the point is, guys, the Sun Bowl's been a trendsetter in a lot of ways. They really have. So it's important to note that and understand that a lot of the things that these other bowls are utilizing now all started here. We're kind of the launching ground for all that.
Yeah, I'm just still fascinated as to how much does it cost to sponsor a bowl game. I remember the last UTEP bowl game they played in was the New Mexico Bowl, which was at the time sponsored by PUBG, the video game. Now that video game is not very popular. And so, it's just kind of funny how it feels a little fly-by-night-ish with some of these sponsors. Sometimes they just do it for status at the point. But I'm curious to see how much it actually costs to sponsor some of these games.
So listen to this. Non-CFP bowl game sponsorships are anywhere between $500,000 and $6 to $7 million. The New Year's 6 games were in the the ballpark of tens of millions of dollars. 7 years ago, Capital One paid $25 million to sponsor the Orange Bowl.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot right there.
Yeah. So it is a lot. In fact, I would love to know if somebody actually has a record of, a few years ago, how much these bowl games were getting from sponsorships, because I just don't think it's genuinely available. Some might give you the answers, but I think a lot of them keep it under wraps because they don't want it getting out how much each sponsor pays, because then they might try and top each other. So it is kind of interesting. All right, 16 past the hour. 505-6009. That is our telephone number as we continue here on Sports Talk Live from Border City Alehouse. We're here for another hour on the show. We'll get you ready for the Cowboys and the Bengals. Come down and watch it with us. Take advantage of all the great food and drink specials out here at Border City tonight, and get yourself ready to go for what should be a pretty entertaining game. We'll come back with more right after Charlie One, who's standing by with his traffic update. Sports Talk continues, 505-6009. That's our telephone number. We're taking you up till kickoff for the Cowboys and the Bengals. We'll offer up some of those predictions here on the show as we continue. 505-6009. That is our telephone number, 505-6009. You can also get in on Twitter and X at 600 ESPN El Paso. You get a chance to thank you, El Paso Visuals. El Paso Visuals spotted Dave Roberts at the Sun Bowl and took a bunch of pictures to show everybody of what it was like when he was out there wearing that UCLA cap and hanging out on the sidelines.
Very cool photo. Very cool photo. I think Ivan's also got one with Condoleezza Rice, who made an appearance at the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl when Stanford came out here. So, like Eddie was saying in the previous segment, a lot of great stars who made it out here.
You were out earlier at UTEP basketball practice as they get ready to go for their trip to Louisville tomorrow. You tell me, what was the attitude of the team after a very impressive win on Saturday?
The attitude of the team, Steve, is they're playing their best basketball thus far. It's only a month in, really, right? I mean, we're talking early December here for the men's basketball program, but the dominant victory against Seattle, they're hoping to carry that into Louisville, which, by the way, Louisville had Duke this past weekend. They've got Kentucky later this week, and UTEP sandwiched in between. Maybe it's a look-ahead game for Louisville. The argument on the flip side is it could be a get-right game for the Cardinals. Despite all of that, I think the Miners can go into Wednesday's game with nothing to lose, everything to gain mentality and an opportunity to play in a great environment.
If Louisville's that banged up, though, and they only have 7 healthy players, I mean, that is about as good an opportunity as UTEP's ever going to get, right?
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, Duke, that game right there was really close until the end. UTEP's got to play with a mentality that, despite the score, really go after it in the second half. Like, whatever the score is in the first half, just try to hang in there. Second half is where they try to UTEP's got to try to wear down Louisville in this matchup right here, because if you only have 7 guys who are healthy, just wear them down. That stifling UTEP defense that we've seen over the past 2 weeks, it's got to travel again, and it's got a tough task ahead of them. Here in this ACC matchup. 18,000 people they're expecting in attendance on Wednesday, Steve, so should be a great environment.
Clearwater gets in. I'm going to say it on Twitter and X. Louisville is a winnable game. Haven't defeated a power conference school in Golding's tenure. We beat Arizona State under Terry last. That's a good point. 4 years in? So he has a chance to have his first power conference win. Is that real, or
no?
Have they beaten other power schools in the first 3 years?
They beat Cal last year, Steve, on the Tay Hardy game winner, 75-72, albeit on a neutral site. So if you want to say haven't beat a team like this, a high major team on the road, it could be true, but they beat Cal in the SoCal Challenge last year.
Thank you. And by the way, to answer the question for Miner in Wisconsin, he wanted to know, with DeCannon Wickware back today at practice, where has he been?
He has been hurt, Steve. He's been dealing with some kind of injuries behind the scenes. So getting DeCannon Wickware back now will only mean that they need to get him healthy and also in shape. He's not in playing shape right now, so he needs a bit of time to ramp it up. Could you see him play against Jacksonville State in the first game of the Westar Don Haskins Sun Bowl Invitational? Possibly. That would be the game I would target right there, Friday, December 20th, if we're going to see DeCannon Wickware.
505-6009 as we head on out to Gator Richard, who joins us next on the phone lines. Go Gators. What's going on, man?
Go Gators. Hey, so every time something new comes along for New York, whether Juan Soto's new to New York or not, that's like the greatest thing ever, huh?
Listen, okay, since you root for Japanese superstars, and albeit I'm excited for you, good for you, you should be. That's a good thing to root for. I root for the same team who has not been relevant for quite a while, although they did play within the last 10 years in the World Series and lost to Kansas City. The last time the New York Mets won the World Series was 1986. What were you doing in 1986? Yeah.
I graduated in December.
Okay.
86.
Point is, you were in college, all right? It's a long time ago, Richard. So, yeah, this doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean they're going to win a World Series, but I'll say this. They finally landed a superstar that they've usually strike out on all the time in free agency, and the fact their owner has more money than God and doesn't mind spending it, I'm all right with that, especially with the previous ownership and how cheap they were and how they decided to run New York's Mets like a small market franchise because they got involved in those Ponzi schemes with Bernie Madoff, if you remember correctly, and as a result decided to go cheap on the Mets until they sold the team. So, yeah, I'm okay with Steve Cohen and what he's doing. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy right now. Absolutely. Big difference. One they acquired when he was, 39, about to be 40. The other they're getting when he's 25, going on 26. So 15 years is a big difference, and I'm all right with Juan Soto versus Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to let your party pooping on my parade have any kind of an impact. I will not let that happen. So
all right, hey, can we go over these bowl games? Can I give you my prediction for
Sure.
this week college team playoff thing, I think it's pretty weak. That Clemson, I don't think Clemson should even be in this thing. Ohio State, they shouldn't be in it either. SMU, who they play all year. Okay? Seriously. I made the call on Ohio being weak, and you and Adrian were like, oh, what about these teams? And then who'd they lose to? An unranked Michigan cheating team. Okay? And Michigan, I mean, how did they waltz into a game? SMU didn't even have fans at this championship game. Give me a break.
First off, Michigan is not playing in the playoffs. They're playing, actually, they probably have the best non-playoff game because they're playing Alabama in Tampa on New Year's in the Relia Quest Bowl. That's a good one. That's a really good game.
Not really. It's not going to be competitive at all, I don't think.
You think Alabama's going to blow them out?
Absolutely. Just like Ohio's going to get blown out. And when SMU, waltzes in, I mean, who's SMU going to play? And then they got, another powerhouse.
You mean Boise State? Yeah. Okay.
Second-tier teams that, are they even going to have fans in the stands for these games?
I don't know. Is there going to be anybody at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa to watch Florida play Tulane?
I guarantee you that. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. There you go.
All these teams, yeah, you know what? And then you're talking about the Sun Bowl and a lot of celebrities. What's-his-face didn't show up to play in his own bowl game. He sat out because he was going in the draft. The last time I bought a ticket to go to the Sun Bowl, and then Dipstick doesn't even show up. I wish they would have put that out weeks beforehand, our best player, he ain't going to show. See what I mean?
Yeah. Well, good news, because in the Tony the Tiger Bowl, pretty much all the players that are on Louisville and Washington are going to play in this game, so it should be fun. So look at it that way. All right, Richard. Richard has given us enough takes to last us through the week, guys.
Wow, that was a lot right there. You're hearing from an SEC guy right there talk about somebody who, like SMU is going to be playing up against Penn State. I get it. If you're going to tell me that resume from SEC schools are better than the resume of SMU, I could see your point. But to say that these games don't mean anything, there's going to be no fans, I mean, come on, let's be real. That Indiana-Notre Dame game, that environment in the Midwest for that first-round playoff matchup, that's going to be electric. And SMU making it to the college football playoff in year one of the ACC, that means a lot for that program right there.
Bottom of the hour, we'll get to Augustine in a minute. Love the fact that he's following up Gator Richards' call. But before we do, let's go right back to Adrian. He's standing by with this SportsCenter update. At Border City Alehouse, come down, get ready. We got great prizes, great fun, a lot of good vibes with the Cowboys and the Bengals getting ready to hook up for Monday Night Football. Augustine is hanging out. He's next up as we continue. 505-6009. Augustine, what's going on?
Hey, Steve. Hello, everybody. And one of the things about Gator Richards, that take on you guys was absolutely phenomenal. I had never heard you sound like that on airwaves, more clear than Gator Richard did. But to Gator Richards, to his take on games, it's just a reality that anything outside, the playoffs, do they really mean anything, Steve, anymore? That's the question that I want to pose. How can you make bowl games relevant now? Unless they're part of a playoff system or something to that effect, really, going to a bowl isn't what it was 20, 25 years ago.
Well, I mean, in your opinion, it's all about the playoffs and everything else is completely irrelevant?
I mean, in any competition, you want to win a championship. That's the thing. And if you're not involved in the playoffs, I mean, what is the payoff of actually playing a bowl game? Plus, when your star, quote unquote, players are gonna, take a back seat, what is the takeaway?
I mean, just understand that to me, the biggest thing is this, okay? Number one, there's a ton of viewership. Fans go to these games. I mean, some players, you're right, go into the portal. Some players declare for the NFL, but for the most part, I think the 12 teams that are in the playoffs are going to all be intact. Have we seen any major names yet of the 12 teams still alive that have decided to either go into the portal or remove themselves from these games?
I'll just say this real quick, Steve. Arizona State had a couple guys hit the portal, some of their more relevant guys. However, their head coach, Kenny Dillingham, said that he wanted those players to hit the portal now if they were ever planning to hit the portal after the season so they could take advantage of better recruiting right now versus later on when they're already out of the playoffs. So just in Arizona State's case.
But to support Augustine's call and message, that really sends a weird vibe, doesn't it? Like, you get a bye, you're into the second round, and yet you're going to be going someplace else if you're a major contributor. Now, if you're not playing and you feel like it doesn't matter, that's one thing. But if you're a contributor, how do you not want to try to play for a national championship?
That's why I feel like all those players who Dillingham illustrated will end up playing unless he goes back on his word, because he said he had a team meeting with most of his players and said that this would be allowed. They could re-enter the program at Arizona State while maintaining their transfer portal status. As confusing as it sounds, right? My other point to this is this feels like an outlier. No other team is doing this out of the 12 in the college football playoff. Everybody's intact and everybody's planning for the playoff, which is the ultimate goal, to win a national title when it's all said and done, like he said.
That's true, too. All right, Augustine, what else you got?
And one thing, and this is a question for all the NFL fans out there, and I just wanted to pose this because it's so, the NFL this year is so weird. It just, so many people on IR, and are we ever going to find out? Are people ever going to realize that the most important position in a football field is the offensive line? That's my question, Steve. Are we ever going to really give the offensive line its due?
I feel like when we talk about teams and we talk about, like, epic fails, part of it is definitely offensive line. I've said all year that I am not on the anti-Aaron Rodgers train with the Jets, and I still want him back next year because I saw what he did with an offensive line that protected him yesterday against the Dolphins. He threw for over 300 yards, and it wasn't his fault that the Jets' defense couldn't stop the Dolphins in the last 50 seconds of the game in overtime. And you want to know something? I also saw the offensive line crumble around him the first 10 games or 12 games of the season and made him look like a 41-year-old. And I feel like that offensive line was so bad it would have made anybody look awful. So you're right. I mean, offense and defensive line is where it all starts. And if you have a suspect offensive line, I don't care who's quarterbacking. I don't care who's a running back. You're going to struggle. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, and the perfect example, I think, the best quarterback in the NFL is Joe Burrow. Yet he's got a very suspect offensive line.
Well, you know what he has? He has a terrible defense is what he has. That's the reason Joe Burrow is having a terrific football season this year. A terrific season, okay? But his defense is giving up 40 a game. So when you have to try to outscore everybody every single week, there's a reason why you're 4-8 and not 8-4 right now. So, Burrow's thrown for 30 touchdowns and 3,337 yards with only 5 interceptions. He's been absolutely phenomenal this season. Now, what Augustine is bringing up is he's never had a good offensive line. Listen to this, Adrian. As a rookie, he was sacked 32 times in 10 games. Then his second season, he was sacked 51 times in 16 games. Then 41 times in 16 games. Then 24 times last season in 10 games. And so far, 30 sacks in 12 games.
But to say that he's the best quarterback in the NFL, I mean, come on. We've got Patrick Mahomes in this league right here who's got, 2 rings under his belt, 3 rings under his belt, and then you have Josh Allen who's playing the way he is right now, and that offensive line or those weapons around him aren't that spectacular. Like, let's be respectful for Allen and Mahomes for what they've been doing on the season, while also saying, Burrow needs help. He needs a better offensive front. He gets sacked way too many times, and the reason why he got hurt in year 1 was because of that offensive front, and the reason why they probably didn't win the Super Bowl in year 2 is they couldn't hang on up front. Like they let Aaron Donald take over that game in the Los Angeles Rams. So he definitely needs some offensive support up front, but he's not the best quarterback in my eyes.
I don't know, man. I mean, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3,300 yards in 12 games. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now, does he have the rushing ability of Josh Allen? No. Does he have the elusiveness of Patrick Mahomes? No. He doesn't. But to see what he's been able to do on a terrible Cincinnati team this year is pretty it's pretty incredible to watch. It really is. So I'll get your take before we wrap it up. Alberto, you agree with Adrian that Joe Burrow a little overrated considering some of the players that are winning and are getting it done, and yet it seems like Burrow sometimes gets more of the headlines?
Yeah, he does get a lot of the attention, and he recently hasn't been getting the success. And I'll bring up a quarterback I don't think either one of you guys mentioned, and was Lamar Jackson, right? He's got a couple of MVPs under his belt, and he's been playing absolutely lights out. He had 2 passing touchdowns in his last 2 games, and against Cincinnati, he had 4 passing touchdowns. So, there's a lot of better quarterbacks. I think it's just it comes and goes for quarterback play.
All right. By the way, I mean, if I had my pick, and this is probably going to be a take that Adrian is going to completely disagree with me on. I know you are, Adrian. But if I had my pick between Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, I'm taking Joe Burrow.
Wow, that's so interesting to me. I mean, I'd say if you want to go Mahomes, Burrow, Allen in order for top 3, it's a pretty good take. It's hard to go against when you know that Allen hasn't even been to a Super Bowl and Burrow has. You could also argue Allen's had more of a supporting cast over the years versus Burrow as well. So it's not a totally hot take, right? I think it's more of a reflection of where we're at in the league, right? Like I still consider Burrow a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. I think Allen is just a notch better than him, just as of right now, while also respecting the quarterback play and the accuracy that Burrow presents.
If you want to give Allen the edge because of the running ability, I can't argue that. I can't. I mean, it's a fair point. He's got 400 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns to go along with his 23 passing touchdowns. So, hey, that's fair. Just feel like, unfortunately, Joe Burrow is just stuck on a team right now that has awful defense. So, but it's a good storyline as we head into this Bengals-Cowboys game coming up here in a little bit. We are live, Border City Alehouse. We'll take a timeout, come back, and wrap up hour number 2 in a moment right here at 600 ESPN El Paso. Our Monday home. It's Border City Alehouse. Cowboys, Bengals. Looking forward to it. We have great prizes we're giving away. You can sign up right now and get yourself registered as we get ready for that. We've got a wild week this week, guys. I mean, UTEP on their way to Louisville. So tomorrow we'll come back, run it back for the full show, and then we're only on for 30 minutes on Wednesday because of the basketball game. And, Adrian, those half-hour shows are so weird. It's like we start and we're done, and it's like, man, where does the time go sometimes?
Right. I mean, for that matchup on Wednesday, Steve, it's UTEP versus a 5-4 Louisville team that is coming off losing 3 straight, albeit to some quality teams. Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Duke have been the ones who've handed Louisville a loss over the last 2 weeks. So they have Kentucky this Saturday on deck. That's a top 10 team in the country. And UTEP sandwiched in between on Wednesday. Is this the look-ahead game for the Cardinals as they prepare for Kentucky on Saturday, a rivalry matchup? And could the Miners catch them slipping here as they've kind of been on a bit of a slide, Steve, losing 3 straight?
Yep. Good storylines. We'll talk about it all in depth tomorrow on the program. Meanwhile, we just learned that Dylan Gabriel, Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, and Cam Ward announced as the Heisman Trophy finalists tonight. So the announcement will be made official. Let me see if I have the date on this, when they're going to be announced. This Saturday in New York. So the top 4 vote getters were determined by 900 voters, and they were selected as the finalists. Guys, I keep hearing Ashton Genty is going to win this thing. So the case for Gabriel, Ward, or Hunter, doesn't it almost seem like this year in particular, if you don't give it to Ashton Genty, you got to give it to Travis Hunter. Because no offense to Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel, they've had great seasons with Oregon and Miami, but Travis Hunter's ability to do things that, play on both sides, Genty's record-setting year, just seems like this is the year a non-quarterback is going to win the Heisman.
Right, Steven. You know what? I will say this. Las Vegas is siding with Travis Hunter as a big-time favorite. In fact,
wow.
Ashton Genty plus 2,500 to win the Heisman. Dylan Gabriel plus 30,000 to win the Heisman. Travis Hunter minus 10,000 to win the Heisman when it's all said and done.
Well, let me say this. If I was a betting man, what's those Genty odds?
2,500.
Wow. I'd put $100 on Ashton Genty to win $2,500, wouldn't you?
No, I'm going all in on Travis Hunter, man. I love this guy. I mean, I'm not making any money off of this. I'm probably just picking Travis Hunter to maybe go number 1. If I'm a betting man and I'm looking for futures, I'd say Travis Hunter, first overall draft pick, and seeing what those odds are right now.
If you are a betting man, you are not touching Travis Hunter.
Correct.
In this Heisman vote. Now, Alberto, you're like me. You like to sometimes play the odds a little bit. Would you throw it down on Genty, or are you like Adrian, you believe it's going to be all Travis Hunter?
No, actually, me and Adrian disagree here, so I'll try not to comment too much because in the small studio, things can get too heated. So I just think that the year that Boise State has been led by Ashton Genty, and that needs to be rewarded with the Heisman. We just saw Travis Hunter not really competing late into the season for anything, and then he would be in 40-point games, up 20+, still getting the ball in the fourth quarter, stat padding, and I don't understand what the point of that was. When your team's not competing, why should you be in the running for this trophy when there's guys in the running who have led their team two certain playoff positions? So that's my argument for Ashton Genty. So I might throw some money in on it.
2,500 yards, 29 touchdowns, and a 7.3 yards per carry average on 344 carries, Adrian.
No, it would take a once-in-a-generation type of talent to beat him, and that's who's going to do it. A Travis Hunter who's playing both ways, wide receiver and corner. And by the way, all conference in both categories, wide receiver and corner. No one throws his way. So defensively, his stats don't look eye-popping, but as far as the offensive side of the ball, 1,100 receiving yards, 92 receptions, 14 touchdowns. I like the numbers there.
Man, Genti had 6 games of over 200 yards rushing this year. Unbelievable. But you're right. He's an underdog. Yeah, give me those odds. I'd throw that down. Hey, we're 2 down. We got 1 to go. Stay with us, folks. We'll take you right up till kickoff. Cowboys, Bengals, about 20 minutes away out here at Border City Alehouse, 1506 Lee Trevino with Sports Talk Live.